Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Football Chemist, where we use data and analysis to go through football's biggest talking points. On today's episode, we'll be looking at Liverpool legend Andy Robertson, who had a very tricky match over the weekend against Fulham. The Scotsman gave the ball away within 15 minutes and, in trying to get it back, committed a foul that ultimately saw him sent off. Whilst Liverpool were able to fight back and get the draw, they're put in a compromised position where they could never really chase the win in the match, and it all boiled down to that Robertson error. It's a worrying trend for Robertson so far this season, who has really struggled to be the player that he has been in the last few years. So today we're going to look at his numbers and see whether his career with Liverpool is coming to an end, or whether he can still salvage it and prove that he is an integral part of Arne Slot's team. So Robertson missed a lot of last season through injury, and when he was out, Joe Gomez and Kostas Tsimikas both deputised very competently for him. He is undoubtedly a club legend who was there when Liverpool were winning all of their trophies under Klopp. But as we've seen with this new era of Liverpool, many of those players in that team are starting to move on and are starting to consider their futures, most notably, of course, Mo Salah, Trent Alexander-Arnold and Virgil van Dijk, who are all out of contract this summer. But is it time for Andy Robertson to move on as well? It's a very tricky time for Liverpool right now, and you can still see they're in a period of transition, even if they are doing well in the league. They may sit top, but their future is in jeopardy, and lots of key players might need to be moved on this summer, and Andy Robertson will be central to this debate. So to start with, why don't we have a look at why Robertson is so crucial to Liverpool, and he has been for so many years. As I'm sure you know, his work rate is impeccable. He brings an energy to the team that not many other players can bring across the Premier League. Taking a look at his stats, he is a monster presser, and this was most notable in a 4-1 win against Man City 5 or 6 years ago, when he famously did that pressing run all the way from the halfway line right up to Ederson at the other end of the pitch, and that just epitomises Andy Robertson's game. And it's not like his underlying numbers have been bad in the last 365 days. In fact, he is in the 97th percentile for expected assists amongst left-backs, 98th percentile for shot creating actions, 98th for attempted passes, and 97th for progressive passes. So he is right at the very top when you compare him to other left-backs in Europe's top 5 leagues. And while he has been playing this role for years, this could also partly be why his career is starting to wind down. Even though he is only 30, this kind of intensive football is so hard to maintain over so many years. And given that he has been playing for Liverpool since 2017, this might be why he is struggling so much this season. So where exactly is he struggling for Liverpool? And in my opinion, the place that really shows his struggles are his errors so far this season. He was always the more dependable of the two fullbacks for Liverpool. Trent Alexander-Arnold was the more modern fullback who would get forward and create chances and create assists, whereas Robertson was more dependable. He would stay back a bit more. Not to say that he didn't get up and attack, because he did, but he was always the more defensively sound one and the more consistent one. And the error against Fulham is the kind of error that you just did not see Robertson making that much in Liverpool's title-winning season. And his declining minutes almost show how his influence in the Liverpool team is starting to go down. Now, obviously, when we look at this, the stats for this season are not representative, as we have had under half the season so far. And even if we look at the 2023-24 season, that is also not representative, because he spent a lot of that season on the sidelines. However, we can see a clear downward trend over the last 4 seasons, and this kind of shows how Robertson's impact in the Liverpool team is starting to go down, and he is perhaps starting to tire and not have the same effect that Liverpool fans would like. This has also shown how this season his attacking threat has dropped off, and this could partly be because Slot wants to play Robertson in a bit of a different role, because Liverpool are now playing a more possession-based football rather than Klopp's trademark gegenpressing and counter-attacking. If we look at his attacking threat, though, you can see that his touches in the attacking third per 90 have been on the decline this season. In fact, it has been his worst Liverpool season so far for both of these stats, both by quite some way as well, which really shows that Slot does want to use Robertson differently. And now this wouldn't ordinarily be a problem, because this could just be a sign of how Slot wants to play, as we are seeing that Slot relies on his midfield more for chance creation than Klopp did. In Liverpool's title-winning season in 2020, the midfield was always that cliche word of just workmanlike, where you had Fabinho, Henderson and Wijnaldum never giving you outstanding numbers for goals and assists, but they did the job. They were that pivot and transition group that helped to move the ball from defence to attack without ever really making the headlines, but was still effective nonetheless, whilst it was the fullbacks who were bagging the assists. However, the real worry comes when you see how Robertson has struggled at the back as well, because his clearances, blocks and interceptions per 90 are all down this season. Yes, it is a small sample size so far this season, but it is still a worrying trend. He's not having the same defensive impact that he used to, and this could partly be because Liverpool have been better this season, and so are giving away fewer chances to their opposition. But it could also be that Robertson does not quite have that same ability to throw himself into challenges and make those last-ditch challenges that he normally can. However, let us not ignore that Robertson still does offer an attacking threat for Liverpool. Whilst he might not have an assist so far this season, he is still creating chances, and this is reflected by how his expected assists are still consistent to what we normally see in his other seasons. If we take a look here, what we can clearly see is that last season was a bit of an anomaly for Robertson for all the right reasons. This could be because we got a smaller sample size because he played fewer matches, but it is also worth noting that he did have a very good season last year, especially going forward, despite having the injury and despite supposedly being past it. This season, though, he has returned to his normal numbers, as you can see for his key passes and successful crosses, and that is no bad thing at all. If Robertson is performing at the level that he did in 2020, Slot would be a very happy man. But it's one thing to look at the stats, and it's another thing to see whether a player passes the eye test. Stats can only tell us so much, and there's no real stat to showcase how costly that performance against Fulham was for Liverpool and how he has struggled this season. So that begs the question, does Robertson need to be replaced? And if so, who can replace him? Firstly, let's look at within Liverpool, where you've got two main options. You've got Kostas Tsimikas and Joe Gomez. Unfortunately, neither of these two players are available to replace Robertson right now. Tsimikas is battling some injury issues, and Gomez needs to play at centre-back in order to cover for Konate, who is also out injured. Furthermore, Gomez is not an out-and-out left-back, although he did play there last season when Liverpool needed him to do, and did a very good job as well. So if Liverpool do need an emergency fix, Gomez is a good option. However, looking in the wider context of this season and beyond, I don't think that either of these players are Liverpool's long-term answer to replacing someone like Robertson. If they do want to replace him in the long run, they need to get in a proper fullback and a fullback capable of playing at the top level. While Tsimikas is a good squad player, is yet to be seen whether he can really establish himself as a number one left back in a top Premier League team. So who are Liverpool's options who they could possibly target in this coming summer? After looking at the stats and looking at the players who are similar to Robertson and can offer Liverpool the attacking threat that they'd like, while still offering that defensive stability and high work rate, I found 5 names who I think Liverpool could consider in terms of replacing Robertson in the long run. Now, fullbacks always come in pairs, so it's crucial that whoever Liverpool are thinking of bringing in, that they complement whoever is playing on the right. And there is a bit of mystery about this because we do not know whether Alexander-Arnold is going to sign a new contract. So it could be him, or it could be Conor Bradley, who's doing a very good job, both for Liverpool and for Northern Ireland. So for argument's sake, I'm going to say that it is Bradley who will be Liverpool's number one right back next season. But between him and Alexander-Arnold, they play a pretty similar role. So you can make similar arguments for whichever fullback you bring in and how they will complement Bradley or Alexander-Arnold, whoever is starting there next season. Now, if we look at Bradley, we know he likes to get the ball high up the pitch. He does tend to stay further out wide. He has inverted a bit, but not nearly as much as Alexander-Arnold does. He is more of your traditional right back, more like how Trent played in 2020, where he'll get to the byline and he puts in crosses. He's a very good crosser, but his progressive passes still leave a bit to be desired. He is more one of those players who likes to run with the ball and run up the pitch rather than playing long balls forward to the forwards or the winger. So fortunately, I've done a bit of research into left backs for one of my previous videos, so I do know a thing or two about some of the players that Liverpool can consider, and one of them is someone who I mentioned in my England video earlier, and that is Leif Davis. The key point about Davis is that he offers such a big attacking threat. His assist numbers in the last 2 seasons have been so impressive. I know it's been in the Championship and League One, but it's still a very good indicator of what he can offer, even in a team like Ipswich, who in the Championship were not exactly the most progressive or possession-based team. So to produce those assist numbers is still incredible. And he is still producing good numbers this season, despite playing for one of the teams in the league who has had the least possession so far this season. He is still young, he can get forward and create chances, and also he very rarely makes mistakes. in a top team, you will always be judged by how few mistakes you make, especially as a defender. So this is crucial, especially for a player like Davis. However, bringing him in will be a bit of a gamble. He has not got much top level experience. He has only really played for Ipswich, and he has yet to be capped by England. So buying him would be a gamble, but if Liverpool do have time to bed him in, he could be a gamble worth taking, where you spend a season or half a season getting him used to the system before actually introducing him as your number one left back. Next up, we've got a player who Liverpool have been linked with a lot recently, and it's someone whose name sounds a bit similar to Andy Robertson, and that is Anthony Robinson, who had a very good match against Liverpool last weekend, actually, for Fulham, and really did manage to hold Salah at bay for a lot of the match, while still providing an attacking threat as well. Just like Davis, he is a top assist provider, and he also works well at both ends because he is leading the stats in terms of clearances and interceptions, where he's in the 94th and 97th percentile respectively for left backs. So this shows that he works well at both ends. However, at 27, he is very much in his prime, and if he is only 3 years younger than Robertson, it is hard to see whether he is a long-term option to solve Liverpool's left-back issue if Robertson does move on. Furthermore, he is a bit error-prone. He has made 7 errors leading to a shot in the last 2.5 seasons, which is far higher than anyone else we are considering on this list. So he will need to get these errors out of his system if he wants to play for a team like Liverpool. Furthermore, his progressive passer stats are a bit lacking, and whilst this would not normally be an issue, if he is playing alongside someone like Bradley, who is also lacking in the progressive passes department, these two combined could create a bit of a problem for Liverpool in terms of moving the ball forward and getting the ball out wide to wingers such as Diaz or Salah. The third left-back option for Liverpool, and I'm sure you've seen this one coming, is Lewis Hall. If you've watched any of my videos before, you do not need me to tell you again how much I rate Lewis Hall as a fullback and as a player. He's a very well-rounded left-back and has a great footballing instinct to know when to get forward and when to stay back. You can see him linking up well with Anthony Gordon, another Liverpool target, but at the same time, he does look after his defensive game. Remember that 1-0 win that Newcastle had against Arsenal earlier this season? Lewis Hall kept Saka in his back pocket, and that was a key reason why Newcastle got all 3 points that day. These days, Newcastle are playing more like a big team, and Lewis Hall is relishing this role. He likes to attempt progressive passes, which is exactly what Liverpool need in whoever they get at left back. However, if they are going to get Hall, they will have to break the bank. He is not going to come cheap because he just arrived at Newcastle, and he is considered one of the best left backs in the country. However, Liverpool do have deep pockets. They only made 2 signings this season, Mamardashvili and Federico Chiesa, and neither of them cost too much, and Mamardashvili was only signed for next season anyway. So if Liverpool need to spend and they made left back their number one target, they can afford to splash the cash on someone like Hall. However, Liverpool shouldn't be restricting themselves to the Premier League in terms of looking for a left back. So I looked in the other top 5 leagues in Europe at some of the other options. And in terms of looking for one of the best left backs in Europe, you do not need to look further than Alex Grimaldo, who is currently playing as a wing back for Bayer Leverkusen under Xabi Alonso. He is in the top 10% for almost all of the attacking stats for a left back. He is leading his opponents in terms of assists, shots, expected assists, shot creating actions. I could go on. He is statistically the best left back in the world right now. Yes, he is flattered in these stats by the fact that he plays as a wing back, whereas he is up against traditional left backs who don't get to get up the pitch as much as he does, but it's still such a good indication that he is a progressive left back who can get you chances and get you assists. However, if Hall is hard to sign, Grimaldo will be even harder. Hall might be considered one of the best left backs in the Premier League, but Grimaldo is considered one of the best left backs in the world. He's already playing for Bayer Leverkusen, a top team, so it will always be tricky to prize him away from a team like Leverkusen. Furthermore, he is 29. He's in his prime, but he's also only a year younger than Robertson. Again, it doesn't seem like signing someone like Grimaldo is good long-term planning by Liverpool. He will be expensive, and if Liverpool are going to break the bank for a left back, they may as well get someone young. The final option I'd like to talk about is Girona's Miguel Gutierrez. On paper, he ticks a lot of the boxes for Liverpool and what they need in a left back. He's only 23, so he's got plenty of good time ahead of him. He came through Real Madrid's academy, so he's used to playing for a big team. And he's been playing for Girona for the last couple of seasons, who have been challenging right at the top of La Liga and like to take the game to the Barcelonas and the Real Madrids of the league. He has a very promising talent and would fit into Liverpool very well. However, he would be very hard for them to sign given Girona's relationship with Manchester City, as they share owners, so Liverpool might have a tough time trying to negotiate with Girona in terms of signing one of their players. However, whilst it might be a tough sell, Liverpool should go for it anyway, because Gutierrez is a very good left back and should be on Liverpool's wish list if they can get him. While these options are great, the key question is this: do Liverpool need to replace Robertson, and do they need to do it soon, or do they need to do it in 3-4 years' time? I would argue that while he is going through a bit of a rough patch, this might be temporary, and over the last year he has shown glimpses of being his best, and I feel that part of the reason why he's struggling is because he still needs to get used to the new system under a new manager, which he can do though, because he definitely has the work rate and he definitely has the work ethic to learn to fit into Slot's new system, even if he's not going forward as much as he did under Klopp. However, Liverpool do need to start planning for the future, and depending on how other sales go, signing a new left back could well be their number one priority. However, they don't need to rush signing someone who is already proven and needs to get into the team from day one. When Robertson first arrived at Liverpool, he played second fiddle to Alberto Moreno for much of the start of that season, and it was only through Moreno's injury that he got his chance in the team. This extra 3-4 months that Robertson got to get used to the system meant that he wasn't under pressure so much, so Liverpool could do a similar thing with whoever they sign to try and replace Robertson in the long run, but in the short run know that he is still a very solid left back who will get them over the line in games and can still offer an attacking threat. Whoever they look for would need to complement Conor Bradley, and having looked at these 5 options, I think the 2 that Liverpool should consider the strongest are probably Davis and Hall. However, Hall would be quite tricky to get, but I think is ultimately a better player than Davis, but Davis might be a more realistic player who can also be better moulded into Liverpool's system. So what do you think? Is Andy Robertson's time at Liverpool over now? Do Liverpool need to sign someone? If so, who should they sign? And when should Robertson be moving on? Please like this video if you've enjoyed what you've seen, and subscribe for more content like this. Also, please give us a follow on Instagram, as it really helps with our publicity. I'll see you in the next video.